So thank you all for coming out through the weather, and I think that we're going to have a blessing tonight. But let's begin with a word of prayer. Loving Father, we want to thank you for this evening and the opportunity to talk about pestilence that is affecting many around the world, but especially in America. And so, Lord, we just pray for ears to hear, eyes to see. Lord, give us wisdom and help us to know what we can do to do all that we can to protect ourselves. And so, Lord, I lift up our speaker. I pray for Brother Dwayne, ask you to be with him and use him in a powerful way. And our prayer is that the power of the Holy Spirit will be in the words, and that, Lord, you'll give us the conviction, if it's necessary, for any changes that we need. And we pray for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay. Well, let me go ahead and say good evening to everyone. Glad to see you all here once again, and very grateful for new faces and also for familiar faces. And I'm just thankful for this opportunity where we get a chance to talk about a pretty serious situation, a very serious disease that unfortunately is the number 2 killer in the United States of America, which is none other than cancer. And this is something that we just can't ignore. We don't want to be like the ostrich and stick our heads in the sand and act like it doesn't exist. It does exist. And the truth of the matter is you're talking about an hour of time that we're together. So please know, as for all of the subjects that we cover, there's always more. There's a lot more. That's the reason why I told you about filling out these papers where we can do a one-on-one consultation, and that way we can talk about more, because there's just always so much with these diseases. When we deal with the subject of cancer, we know that there's probably someone that we know, that we love greatly, that has been afflicted with this disease. Maybe we ourselves have been afflicted with it at one point, and perhaps it is now history. Or maybe it's a current battle. I lost my mom to cancer. My mother was my absolute best friend. And, when I watched what this terrible disease did to her, these were, as a younger man at the time, it really made me say, if I could help even one person to not have to suffer like my mom did, to not have to go through the pain that she went through and all of what's entailed, then life is just worth living. If I could even help one person. And so I'm thankful that at this point in my life, looking back many years now, that was in 2007, looking back in all these years, I'm very grateful that God has allowed me to help more than one person. And so I can truly say, even at 51 years young, that life for me has been very fulfilling, because I don't know anything more fulfilling than to be able to help somebody who's battling with something, and then to help them go from sickness to wholeness. And so I'm hoping that there'll be something that will be shared, that we will go over and learn a little bit about cancer. What causes it? What are ways to prevent it? And what are ways, by God's grace, to even overcome it? Well, the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to get a little education. Let's go ahead and look at a quick little video that just kind of helps us understand a little bit about this thing called cancer. So let's get the video started.
This animation will show how cancer develops. Cancer is caused by the cells of the body changing so that they grow in an uncontrolled way. Click the navigation arrows below the animation screen to play, pause, rewind, or fast forward the animation. Your body is made up of cells. Nearly all the cells in the body have a nucleus, which is the control center of the cell. The nucleus contains genes, which control everything about the cell, including how the cell grows and when it will die. Damage to genes is the underlying cause of cancer. The damage may be inherited or caused by other factors, such as cigarette smoke. The cells of your body divide to make more cells, so that your organs and tissues can grow and repair themselves. The nucleus controls this division. In cancer, the cells divide in an uncontrolled way, and often more quickly than normal cells. In many cases, the cells form a lump called a tumour. Cancerous tumours can spread into surrounding normal tissue. Not all tumours are cancerous. Some do not infiltrate the surrounding tissues, nor do they spread to other parts of the body. These are known as benign tumours. Tumours that invade the surrounding tissue and spread to other parts of the body are known as malignant tumours or cancer. Cancer cells can invade blood and lymph vessels. These provide a route for spread to other parts of the body to form secondary cancers. This is called metastasis. This is the end of the animation. Click on the animation screen.
So when we're thinking about cancer, something is happening on what we call a cellular level. That's where it all kind of begins. Now, you have to understand that cancer is so diverse that it actually is not always a tumor. There are some cancers that you can get that doesn't involve a tumor, like something like a mesothelioma, which is more like a mold kind of thing that can grow in the body, but it's not an actual tumor. But typically with cancer, you're going to see tumors involved in some shape, form, or size. But the reality is that if you ever heard this term, and you probably hear this especially in holistic medicine and things of that nature, you'll often hear the term treating at the cellular level. If you ever heard that term before, treating at the cellular level, that's the reason why. Because if we can keep the cells working properly, then everything else that comes thereafter should work properly. Because what you ultimately have are cells which develop tissues, which develop organs, which develop systems, which ultimately makes the body. So we are just a big, giant walking group of cells, okay? And that's why you'll often hear this term, working at the cellular level. In other words, take care of your cells, and it pretty much takes care of everything else. Now, when we're dealing with this subject of cancer, we have some statistics that ought to be paid attention to. So here's an example. The leading new cancer cases, from 2016, and sometimes you'll find that even though the date is 2016, it hasn't changed, even though we're in 2023. So notice, an example is this, prostate cancer. For men, one of the greatest cancers that we have to be concerned about as men is prostate cancer. This is why, gentlemen, you hear me talk a lot this week about getting your checkups. And when you get your checkups and you go see your doctor, here's another thing you want to add on your list, is make sure you're getting your PSA. Make sure you get that PSA test, that test for prostate health, okay? Because sometimes prostate cancer could become a reality for us, God forbid. Then you have lung and bronchus, colon cancer comes in number 3. And then you have kidney and renal, liver and intrahepatic bile duct, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Anytime you see the word lymphoma, you're dealing with a blood cancer, okay? But nevertheless, this is kind of like what's happening in the world of men. Prostate cancer is pretty much in the top. When it comes to our dear ladies, however, number 1 is breast. First, we have the issue of breast cancer. And that's why, sisters, you always get your checkups there. But right number 2 is lung. Lung cancer comes in number 2 for women as well. And then, of course, colon is number 3. Uterine, thyroid, pancreas, which is a very, very deadly cancer. One of the things you're going to notice, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, so I won't spend too much time on it, but we're going to make sure we especially address abdominal cancers. When we talk about abdominal cancers, we're talking about pretty much from the waist up to the sternum area. This is all that abdominal region. You have your liver over here, you have your kidneys over here, you have your spleen over here, you have, of course, your colon, you have your stomach, behind your stomach is your pancreas, all of these areas. And then, of course, you have bladder, and the list goes on. When it comes to some of the abdominal region of cancers, the sad reality of why it has such a high death rate is because when symptoms finally show up, it's too late. You're already stage 4. It's already spread. And that's what we call the 9 times out of 10. The 9 times out of 10 is that if we have an abdominal cancer and we begin to look for symptoms. And that I was talking with a friend of mine who is a physician. That's why, again, I really mean it when I say that I believe it's divine why we have a title this week for our health emphasis. What's the title called? Take charge of your health. Here's the reason why. When I talk with a lot of my physician friends, I'm a very, very privileged man. I'm going to tell you that honestly. I'm a very privileged man. And one of the reasons why is because as a result of my many years of doing work in the line of work that I do, I have developed some beautiful friendships. And I have a list of individuals that I can call at any time of the day or at night, and they are specialists. If I wanted to know anything about cancer, I can call my friend John, who is an oncologist, and he can give me whatever I need. If I need to understand something about the respiratory system, I can call my friend Roger, who is a specialist, a pulmonologist. If I need to call somebody pertaining to the heart, I can call Shama, or I can call others who are cardiologists. If I have somebody who's gone through any problems with the brain, I can call Norman, who is my neurologist friend. So I have all of these connections. So I love to pick these guys' brains a lot, and I like to ask them questions. So when it came to cancer, I said, why is it that these abdominal cancers are so deadly? And they said, well, the chief reason why is because the first symptom is typically after it has already spread to other organs, hence stage 4. And I said, well, why can't we get screening sooner? Maybe an MRI, maybe a CT scan, maybe an abdominal ultrasound. Why is it that we can't do that? And they said, because insurance will not cover it unless there's symptoms. And I'm thinking to myself, how backwards is that? If the first symptom shows up at stage 4, which is too late, you're fighting for your life, then the insurance companies should rethink about how they address screening, because abdominal cancers are on the rise. And this is the reason why you take charge of your health. You start making decisions and you start pushing to get certain things done, because you don't always want to wait for the symptom, because that might be a little too late. So we'll talk about that. Always remember this. There's a principle, because remember, we're talking about when we're dealing with cancer, something is happening at a very genetic cellular level. And this is one of the reasons why this principle that we read in the Bible, right? The life of the flesh is in the blood, the cells, okay? The cells of the blood, okay? That more specifically, dealing with those cells. So it is that when we're dealing with cancer, I want to focus on doing everything possible to make sure life is within my blood cells. And the antithesis is also true. If I want to bring cancer onto my body, I can make sure that I allow disease or sickness or death or poisons to come in my cells that can obviously cause a change. Some of these things we can control, some of these things we can't. You know, I know so many people who moved into homes where they had black mold. You know, black mold doesn't give a smell. You know, so you can't go in a house and go, oh, there's black mold here. You know, you can't do that. But the reality is that if you got black mold in your house, you can be in a lot of trouble. That is a very, very bad environmental factor that can make a lot of people sick and even result in something like cancer. And so the reality is some things in life we can control. Some things we can't. The paint that comes right off of these walls emit toxins, and those toxins that we breathe in, obviously, if we're not careful, can make us sick. So there's some things in life you can't control. That's the reason why my recommendation is have a good relationship with God. And the reason why is because if we start to realize how toxic and poisonous our world is, you can become a hypochondriac. You become nervous for everything. You know, somebody shakes your hand, you're like, okay, I got to wash my hands 1,000 times in a day because I shook 1,000 hands. You know, you start getting nervous. You know, somebody sneezes in the air. We're like, whoa, and, you know, we're covering ourselves and running away. And, you know, we're terrified because we're like germs and, you know, I'm just letting you know right now, our whole world is toxic. Disease is everywhere. And so what's going to end up happening is you're going to have to lock yourself up inside a little bubble if you're really trying to avoid every bad thing. And then the problem is when you lock yourself in the bubble, you're still breathing out your own carbon dioxide, which can be poisonous. And who knows, after a buildup of that, you might get yourself in trouble. So the answer is not to, you know, shelter ourselves to the utmost level. The ultimate goal is at a certain point, you got to just learn to trust God and move on. and go ahead and live. But I want to talk about what can we do that can mitigate the possibilities of us having things come in our system that ultimately can cause cellular damage and invite this terrible disease called cancer. 5 needs of the cells. If you and I were to make it a priority to understand that there are needs that the cellular structure in our body must accomplish. It needs oxygen, okay? Our cells need that. It needs pure, fresh oxygen. Number 2, it needs water or hydration. We're talking about how can I keep my body healthy at a cellular level, okay? Because largely what we're going to be discussing is prevention. We're not really going to discuss a lot about cure because every cancer is different. If you have a skin cancer, there's a program for that. If you have an abdominal cancer, there's a completely different program for that. So that's the reason why we're not going to focus too much on cure, even though a lot of cancers can be cured. But we're going to spend a lot of time on prevention. If we're going to practice good prevention, and we understand that cancer begins at that cellular level, then you need to pay attention to what is it that my cells need on a regular basis. It needs oxygen, it needs water or hydration, it needs nutrients, it needs life, okay? It needs food that is living. It needs to be able to assist the body in eliminating waste, and we must keep the poisons out. If we could follow these simple 5 principles, you're already ahead of the game when it comes to avoiding cancer. If we could just keep those 5 principles. Again, there's no guarantees. You know, we can't put guarantees in, not in some 1-hour presentation. But what we can do is we can let you know that you can mitigate greatly the possibility of cancer becoming a reality in your life if we prioritize these things. Again, we're all made up of cells. We need good oxygen, we need hydration, we need good nutrients, we need to make sure that waste that is in us is properly eliminated, and we need to keep poisons out. That is a very important 5-point principle. So I want to talk a little bit about oxygen. Oxygen is more than just breathing. And certainly I'm not talking about walking around with a canister of some sort and having anything wired up to us. I'm not saying that we need to do that either. Our environment is very medicinal. I live out in the mountains, okay? Every time that I come here, I come from the mountains to come on down to spend time with everybody. And when I go home, I go back up that mountain. And I often like to check and see, like, what's the air quality, you know, where I live right now. And the air quality is really excellent. You know, the higher elevation, you typically get more pure, fresh air. And it's a privilege, okay? It's a privilege to live out in a country setting where you can go ahead and breathe in pure, fresh air and these type of things. But a lot of people don't have that privilege, even though that might be their aim or their goal. So what's something practically that anyone can do, poor or rich, you know, whatever circumstance of life we're coming from, what is something that we can do that can help us get some good oxygen that is able to be medicinal to our bodies, even at the cellular level? The answer is plants. If you get more houseplants, there's all sorts of wonderful houseplants that you can put inside of your home, and they work wonderfully for helping us to have pure, fresh air. So let me give you an example here. The areca palm, it literally removes indoor chemical toxins. It removes it. So this is the areca palm, which is actually a very pretty plant. Very few dollars to go ahead and spend. None of these plants are very expensive. And you can get a few of those plants and you put them in your house, and they actually, just like outside, you know, when we go outside, the green provides us with pure oxygen. And then when we're breathing out our carbon dioxide, the green actually takes it in. It's a most amazing phenomenon. Well, so it is. Imagine bringing that now into your home. And so I always tell people, listen, if you can't live out in these wonderful places with pure, fresh air, go get the pure, fresh air and put it in your house. This is how you can get it all started. Another example is the lady palm. Again, a very pretty plant. Lady palm, what does it do? It improves indoor air quality. It literally improves the indoor air quality. Again, look at the peace lily. Again, a very beautiful plant. Isn't that pretty? Very beautiful plant. Look at what it does. It removes alcohols, acetone, trichloroethylene, benzene, and formaldehyde from indoor air. I mean, imagine that. This is a plant. You know, it's like you go to your average nursery and you go ahead and pick some of these little guys up and you just station them in different places in your house. Not only is your home beautiful, but it also has a wonderful fragrance, and it also is affording for pure, fresh air, allowing you to get in that pure oxygen. We take these things for granted sometimes. We think because we're just standing out, that we're just breathing, that we're just getting all the pure, fresh air. But no, you have to be a little intentional, because this is one of the things our cells need. Now again, like I said, the 5 needs of the cells: oxygen, water, nutrients. We want to make sure that we are always eliminating waste. If there's one way that you want to get sick, is when we're not doing proper waste elimination. That's why last night I told, I know probably grossed some of us out. I hope it didn't gross you out too much. But I wasn't doing it for fun or anything. I was trying to be very educational. That Bristol stool chart, if you weren't here last night, you can go on your phone, you can go to Google, and you just type in Bristol, Bristol, stool chart. And you see that whole Bristol stool chart come up. You want to make sure that you're having good eliminations, okay? Now, when we talk about elimination, these are your elimination channels, okay? What's the largest organ in the body? Let's try that again. What's the largest organ in the body? Oh, sound like the mixed multitude. Okay. You know what the largest organ in the body is? Go to your right rib cage. Under the last rib, right under it, is a big organ, almost the size of a football, and it's called your liver. That is your largest organ in your body. What is the largest organ on your body? Skin. Very good. Now, the reality is that these are what we call your elimination channels. I want you to look at this very carefully, because a lot of people, forgive me for that, I was a little trigger happy there and I pressed my thing. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah, there you go. Come right back up. Okay, so, a lot of people do cleanses and things of that nature, which is fine. If an individual wants to do a cleanse, colon cleanse, blood cleanses, that's fine. I'm not here to contest that. But here's something I would like to recommend to you. Before you jump too quickly to blood cleansers and colon cleansers and all that stuff, just make sure that all of your natural, God-given elimination channels are working properly. Your colon, your liver, your urinary system, your respiratory system, your skin, and your lymphatic system. These are all the things that are, when you're created, when I was created, they were designed to help eliminate waste out of the body, to eliminate toxins. Now, why is that important when we're talking about cancer? Take a look. It says conventional medicine does not acknowledge toxicity as an important issue, but many studies have shown this to be the underlying cause of many chronic symptoms experienced today, including the rising rates of cancer over the past 2 decades. An article in the New York Times discusses the major risks of everyday contaminants in our bodies, and a statement made by the International Federation of Gynecology and Obstetrics claims that these toxins are interfering with reproductive health. The more we allow toxins within, we need to make sure that our bodies are healthy enough that toxins can go out. One of the reasons why you should drink a good amount of water every day is because if you're getting more water in your body, it allows one of the elimination channels to work very well. Which elimination system are we talking about? Especially your urinary system, when you're able to release a lot of things that will be within. To all of those who know about hypertension, as an example, when an individual consumes high levels of sodium, too much sodium in the system causes tissues to swell. And when those tissues begin to swell, they begin to press against the vessels. And when they press against the vessels, those vessels can become more narrow or obstructed. And as a result of that, the heart has to apply more pressure to get the blood through. But have you noticed one of the pills that the doctors often put hypertensive individuals on? It's called a diuretic. When you think about the diuretic, what is it making you do? It's making you urinate. And when you constantly urinate, they're hoping that you're going to urinate out some of that excess sodium. So less sodium, tissues no longer swell, no longer pressing against the vessel, and now you have vasodilation, and now blood pressure is normal. And so it is that, again, when you drink your water, you're helping to keep your system well. Digestion walks. And we talked about that last night with diabetes. When you think about taking a digestion walk, it doesn't just keep the glucose levels at bay. It helps with regulating the bowels. A lot of people have come back and told me and others, once they started to walk after their meals, they found that they had to go to the bathroom. They started saying, I realized that normally after meal, when I just sit down, I don't feel much to go anywhere. But after I started walking after a meal, I'm noticing that it's a lot easier for me to go to the bathroom and go have a bowel movement. I'm noticing that the more that I do brisk walking every morning, I'm exercising, that lo and behold, it's affecting my gut. You see, again, colon, elimination channel. That's why those laws of health that I was showing you about, those laws of health are designed to keep us very healthy and to keep your cells very healthy. How does the lymphatic system work best in eliminating waste? When you're moving. If you want to have a dormant lymphatic system, sit around a lot. If you want to have a healthy lymphatic system, you have to move and move around. So it's amazing how our body works like a system. It's all made to make sure that the bad toxins stay out. If they come in, they got to get out. And your bodies are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are already made to get a lot of this bad stuff out. All we have to do is cooperate with how we were created. Keep yourself hydrated. Eat nutritious food, and the list goes on. So, what do they find about this whole toxicity thing? It says, emerging evidence ties endocrine disrupting chemical exposure to two of the biggest public health threats facing society, diabetes and obesity. The Endocrine Society said in announcing its 50-page scientific statement, it added that mounting evidence also ties endocrine disruptors to infertility, prostate cancer, undescended testicles, testicular cancer, breast cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, and neurological issues. All of this could be avoided if we realize our world is toxic. But if I'm doing everything possible to allow whatever comes in to be able to go out through keeping my elimination channels healthy, that's why you go to the doctor every year and you get a metabolic panel. You want to make sure kidneys are doing well. You want to make sure liver's doing well. You want to make sure all of these parts of your body are doing well so they do their job of keeping you clean and getting those toxins out. Now, there are two things that I want you to remember when we're dealing with cancer. And these are really, really, really important. I can't stress this enough. I think about 2018, January, New Year's. A dear friend of mine, her name was Lola. And Lola got up on New Year's Day. We were all at church together, and everybody was giving thanks, of course, because brand new year. And Lola got up, and I remember Lola said, January, first week of January, she got up and she said, I want to thank God because she said, I feel great. And she was, I think she was about 70 years old. She looked amazing, had skin like a baby. And, Lola was just a sweetheart. And she said, I want to thank God, she said, because I feel great. And we all just were like, amen. And, we were just so happy that Lola was feeling great and talking to us about that. Then I went to go do a mission, and I was in Bermuda. And when I was in Bermuda, I got a text. And I got a text, and the text said, hey, pray for Lola. This was in May of the same year. And my text said, pray for Lola. And I said, what's going on with Lola? It says she's in the hospital. We don't know what's happening. So when I got back home, we found out that Lola had a giant mass in her colon. She had a giant mass in her colon, and it spread to her liver. Once you have two organs that are hit with malignant cancer, that means you are stage 4. So January, I feel great. May, stage 4 cancer. December 18 of the same year, I went downstairs to Lola and I said, Lola, we did a ton of treatments with Lola. I said, Lola, is there anything you want me to do? And she said, I want you to make sure that my son receives salvation. And I was like, absolutely. And we ministered to her son. And I told her, I said, Lola, I said, I don't want you to fight for life anymore. It's okay if you want to rest. I said, your son's going to be just fine. And it was 1 hour after I had that last conversation with Lola on December 18th that Lola breathed her last breath. And I remember thinking to myself, I said, January, I feel great. December, breathed her last breath. You know what I found out? From November, if not October of 2017, Lola had symptoms, but she never paid attention to it. What's the first thing to remember? Don't ignore symptoms. When you got something weird or strange going on with your body, you know that it's off. You know this is not normal. And it's been going on, not for just a couple of days, but it's been going on for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or more. Do not ignore your symptoms. You need to say, this is not right. My body should not be going through this. If you're seeing blood in your stool, or if you're, feeling weak all the time, no matter how much you're feeding your body energetic food, or whatever, if you're demonstrating signs that are indicative of potentially cancer, don't ignore those symptoms. Do something about it. Don't just brush it off and say, I'm too busy working, I got to make money and pay my bills and all these other things, and you just ignore it. Don't do that, family. Please, do not ignore your symptoms. If something strange is going on, address it. Once you get past the threshold, and 2 weeks is definitely a threshold. If you got the same problem that's new going on, and it's been 2 weeks or more, you need to go see your doctors. You need to probably consider getting checked out. Which leads me to the second thing to remember. Get rational screening. Get rational screening. Sometimes you got to get checked out. Sometimes it's okay. You know that colon cancer, if it's caught early, has a 94% cure rate. Cure, not treat. Cure. And what do you think is the easiest way to find out if there's anything going on in the colon? Colonoscopy. And it's not just for people who are 50. They lowered the numbers. I don't know if you're aware of that. And I'm just telling you right now, as you're going to see, especially if you eat meat, especially if you eat red meat. If you're eating red meat, you are a candidate of getting colon cancer. It's just a fact. If you're eating hot dogs and hamburgers and all these other things, you are a candidate. So as a result of that, you want to go ahead and consider, let me go ahead and get some screening done, even if you're 35. Even if you're 40, they lowered the numbers greatly. It's not 50 years old anymore. And so these are things that become a reality for all of us, is get your rational screening so you can make sure, gentlemen, get that PSA checked out. Make sure your prostate's doing good. All right? Remember, just because you feel good does not always mean that you are good. Watch out for that. That's a deception. There's a way that seems right unto a man, but the end thereof can be the ways of death. So don't allow just the feeling alone. Cancer is sneaky. It's cancer. The more I study cancer, is the more I'm like, cancer is really like the devil. Seriously, just deceptive, subtle, making things appear all right when it's not all right. Just really, really bad stuff. So just go ahead and get yourself those appropriate screenings. Now, what's the first step we learn? Whenever we discover, if we discovered cancer, if we see that cancer runs in our family or we see cancers in our lives, what do we learn was our first step? Who remembers? Pop quiz. Don't ignore the symptoms. This is true. But what do we learn? Let's say if we had cancer, what should be our first step? Ascertain the cause. Remember that? Always look for the cause. What's causing this problem? Don't forget that. It's a very important principle. Remember, we learned the curse causeless shall not come. A curse never comes without a cause. A disease never comes without a cause. And because of that fact, what should we do? Remember the second principle. The cause which I knew not, I searched it out. You search out that cause. You try to find out what caused me to have this colon cancer? What caused me to have this lymphoma? What caused me to have whatever type of cancer it may be? Now, obviously, that means that you have to have a dialogue with your physicians, right? Your oncologist and whoever, your specialist, sure, absolutely. Well, here's what they said on a general sense, okay? In a general sense, here's what they've stated. The Mayo Clinic, one of the most reputable hospital organizations in the United States of America. The Mayo Clinic said, colon cancer. Their answer, in most cases, it's not clear what causes colon cancer. Then we said, okay, how about breast cancer? They said, it's not clear what causes breast cancer. How about liver cancer? They said, it's not clear what causes most cases of liver cancer. How about prostate cancer? They said, it's not clear what causes prostate cancer. And then non-Hodgkin's lymphoma says, doctors aren't sure what causes lymphoma. Do you see why sometimes we are compelled to take charge of our health? If we're going to the specialist and we're saying, hey, specialist, help me understand why is this going on? And the specialists are saying, we're really not sure. We can't tell you. That does not mean that we throw some party on to celebrate how ignorant physicians may be, because physicians aren't ignorant. They're very intelligent people. They know a lot, but they just don't know the answer to this question. What caused it? And so what we looked at is we saw, well, hey, wait a minute. There is some information out there that we're not afraid to look outside of the box to see what could be causing this. And we know that something is changing on the cellular level. And so one of the things we want to do is protect ourselves by any means necessary. We saw the 5 things that our cells need. And if we are intentional about giving ourselves these things, we put ourselves ahead of the game in being able to fight what often afflicts many other individuals. It doesn't give a guarantee, but it mitigates. It lowers the opportunities of us going through these unnecessary sufferings. So, what are some possible causes of cancer that the researchers have found? Now, again, you remember I told you about some of the physicians out there, they're willing to look outside the box. That's the reason why I like referring to these things. You know, when I look at the book Health Power, when I look at the book The Encyclopedia of Foods and Their Healing Power, when I look at individuals like a Dr. Greger and many, many others today, the Caldwell Esselsteins and others, they're all in agreement. Lifestyle. Lifestyle. Lifestyle is a huge cause to the reason that a lot of people are suffering with various cancers. And that's the reason why we would do well to start taking charge of our health. When it comes to lifestyle, family, you're in charge. You're in charge of that. No one's going to make you get up. No one's going to make you go to sleep. But what they can do is educate you and say, hey, here's the benefits if you go to sleep. Here's the benefits if you drink your water. Here's the benefits if you exercise. Here's the benefits. And that's what can do, and that's what we're trying to do here. So when it talks about what are some of the possible causes, one cause of cancer is when the DNA in healthy cells becomes sick. This is an issue. By our habits of life, beloved, by our habits of life, we are creating an internal environment that will either feed cancer or starve it. Okay? By our habits of life. Continuing, suppressed and inefficient immune systems can cause cancer in the system. 100,000 cells in the body become cancerous every day, but the immune system keeps us from developing cancer. Did you know that? We have cancer cells. They're already in our body, okay? But you got some warriors, especially your T cells. And those guys go around like soldiers. That's why I entitled tomorrow night's subject, The Army Within, dealing with this army, this wonderful group of soldiers called our immune system. But the reality is that what happens if our immune system becomes weak and begins to become frail? It could open a door that it's not able to fight against those cancer cells that are already in our bodies. That's why one of the first areas of fighting against cancer is you got to guard your mind. That's why Friday night is such an important night for us. You got to guard your mind, family. Seriously, guard your mind. Look at these things, negative emotions, because we're talking about the weakened immune system, that weakened army. Well, what is it that can do that? Negative emotions, constantly feeling guilty. We messed up, we made mistakes in our lives, but we are overwhelmed. We are controlled by guilt. Then we have anxiety. You know what anxiety is? It's the worry of the what if. That's why anxiety is such a hard thing to defeat, because it's the worry of the what if. Because no matter what I say to you, you're always going to say, yeah, I hear you, but what if? And you come back with that what if, and you come back. What if is an endless world. It never ends. But that's the world of anxiety, the world of what if, what if, what if, what if. And it causes us to live in this state of worry, depression, stress, all of these things. I remember I had a guy when I was doing the Diabetes Undone program, and it was opening night, okay? Now, you all have had Pastor Rod come here, and Pastor Rod, he introduces himself as a pastor, he prays, things of that nature. What does that do? That indicates, okay, there's some degree of a religious nature connected to this, right? You've seen me refer to a few scriptures and so on. There must be some degree of a religious connection to this. Well, I did Diabetes Undone in Massachusetts, Western Massachusetts. Western Massachusetts has the temple, they're the headquarters of the Temple of Satan. They are known as the Intellect Corridor with the 5 colleges, and they are one of the 6 New England states that have high-level atheism. So if you want to reach the people in Massachusetts, you don't start by referencing God. You don't do that. You're not going to reach it. They're going to say, nope, and they're going to close their ears, and they're going to take off. So we knew that. So there was no religious teaching of any kind. We just did Diabetes Undone. So opening night, no prayer or anything. I just simply said, hello, everybody. Welcome. We're so excited to see you here. And I did the first night's presentation. And there was this guy that came to me at the end. His name was Tony. Tony came to me, and he said, hey, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure. He said, are you a preacher? And I'm thinking to myself, how did he know? I wasn't like diabetes. I wasn't doing something that, made it look like I was some preacher. I didn't do that. I was just talking about diabetes. But for some reason he said, are you a preacher? And I was like, well, I said, yeah, I am. And then he said, well, I'm a bleep, bleep, bleep Jew. And he started to give me all of these choice words, and he just starts bleep, 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 bleep. He was bleeping me that night. And I remember that when he was just finished bleeping me, he said, so what do you think about that? And I looked back at him and I said, are you going to come tomorrow? And then he was like, I'll be there. And then I said, then I'll look forward to seeing you. And that was it. And it ended. So every night I'm just going on and going on and going on. But then we got very advanced in the Diabetes Undone program. And I remember I talked about this right here. I talked about how negative emotions can cause problems with glucose. And as I shared that, I said, there are some people that when they are really stressed out and overwhelmed, they try to handle things on their own, and they realize the limitations of human power. And Tony's in the back like this. That's me. That's me. I can't forget it. It's like Tony's just right there in the back. That's me. That's me. And I was just like, yeah. And I said, sooner or later, I think we all run into areas and times of life where we realize that human power is just not enough. And so I said, so what do you guys do when you get there? I said, would you like to see statistically what people are doing? And then I start going into suicides and people causing self-harm and all these things because they can't take it. Human power has met its limit, and they can't take it anymore. So they hurt themselves, if not kill themselves. I said, before I tell you this, I said, I need your permission. I said, would you like to know what I do when I get to the place that I realize my human power has run out? And they all said yes. And I made sure I looked at Tony. I was like, Tony? I was like, Tony, is it all right? And Tony just says, yeah, tell us. I said, I go to God. I said, I go to God. I said, I pray. I look to his words and look at his promises. I claim his power. And what I have found, it has kept me all the way up until now. That's why I stand before you a genuinely happy and fulfilled man. And I said, and if you just want to know anything about that, I said, you come see me after the meeting. So, of course, Tony starts coming. And I'm getting ready. I'm like, oh, boy, let me get ready. He's going to bleep me again, whatever. And Tony comes to me and he says, do you like to do mountain climbing? And I was like hiking? He was like, yeah. I said, man, I love hiking. He says, you want to go hiking together? I said, Tony, it would be a privilege to go hiking with you. And we just became friends after that. And, I'm just simply letting you know, folks, that sometimes if we allow negative emotions to overwhelm us, to overtake us, if you got a plan that works good without you going to God and you're not open to any God stuff, I respect that. I'm like, okay, I respect that. As long as what you feel is working for you, okay, at least you're not getting overwhelmed. But what I'm realizing is there's a lot of people that are overwhelmed. And so what do I tell them? I just say, well, hey, I said, there is a promise where God says, look, I will keep you in perfect peace. But I need your mind to be stayed on me because I want you to learn how to trust me. And I have found that it is very difficult to be peacefully stressed out. I have found it's very difficult. It's an oxymoron, If you got God's peace, that stress will not overtake you. It's not that stress won't come, but it won't overtake you, okay? Because that's what's important. We live in a nasty world. Stress is going to come, but what's important is that it doesn't overtake you. That's what's key. But unfortunately, this is what happens with a lot of people. So one of the things, and that's why Friday night is very important, we're going to talk about how do we get control of those thoughts, those negative thoughts, those nasty thoughts that just sometimes overwhelms us. How do we do that? Friday night, we're going to hit that hard. But that is one of the things that really affects us and can suppress the immune system and bring on cancer. So one of the things we want to do is learn how to stay cheerful, okay? Another big one, like I told you, meat is linked to higher cancer risk. World Health Organization reports, okay? What did they find out? The World Health Organization said Monday that eating processed meat, such as sausages and ham, causes cancer. Wait a minute, don't we have a holiday coming up where everybody loves to dive into some ham, right? Now, I'm not here to try to mess up your Thanksgiving, but I'm just simply saying that if we are very intentional about battling against cancer, we need to rethink some of those things that we want to eat, especially if we're battling with cancer. It says, eating processed meats such as sausages and ham causes cancer, while unprocessed red meat may also be carcinogenic. Big word for cancer causing. Unprocessed red meat. What's that? Steak, right? Unprocessed red meat. That's things like your steaks and all those things, okay? That's why I told you. I said if you eat meat, especially red meat, I said that can cause cancer, especially in the colon. Take a look. Second paragraph. The World Health Organization's Cancer Research Unit now classifies processed meat as carcinogenic to humans. Like that's almost the same as like cigarettes. It says, based on evidence from hundreds of studies and linked it specifically to colon or colorectal cancer. The World Health Organization now classifies processed meat in the same category as smoking and asbestos based on its certainty of a link with cancer, but stressed that it did not mean that they were equally dangerous. Like eating meat is not the same as smoking a cigarette, okay? So they're not equally dangerous, but they both can equally increase our chances of getting colon cancer. So again, these are things that we want to think about. It's like, if I really want to avoid this stuff, what am I going to do? Well, one of the best things you can do, we get a better control over our thought processes, so we don't allow negative emotions to overwhelm us, because that can suppress the immune system and fight off those cancer cells. Number two, we want to be careful of some of the food groups that we eat, especially the red meat. Even if somebody doesn't go plant-based like I am, I just encourage them, let's see if at least we can start scaling back off of red meat. If we can start scaling back off of red meat and we do more white meat, more of our poultry, fish, that's still a better decision than staying on the red meat, especially the processed foods. Now, what does that mean? That means that, well, we got a great, beautiful pyramid over here. I mean, there's just tons of stuff that you can eat. And you don't have to eat it as you see it. Yeah, sometimes people are like, oh man, you're turning me into a big rabbit now, whatever. It's like, no. You don't have to eat it as you see it. I mean, there's a lot you can do with grains. I mean, these grains right here, there's a lot you can do with that. I mean, you can make pancakes, okay, out of your whole grains. That's what I eat. Pancakes is one of my favorite breakfasts. And my lovely wife, she makes a beautiful pancake, and she makes it with very rich, untampered whole grains. And so a lot of times you can still make biscuits, you can still make waffles, you can still make pancakes. but you're doing it with whole grains. So that's what I mean. It's not like you have to eat it as you see it. There's beautiful things. This Sunday, I asked my wife, I don't know if she's going to do it yet. I think she's going to do it. But instead of a meatloaf, we're going to do a whole different loaf. Instead of a meatloaf, you know meatloaf? You know meatloaf. We're going to make a different kind of loaf. But we've done this all over this country, and boy, do people love it. We're going to have some cheeses that we're going to make right from scratch, and you're going to get to enjoy it. We're going to make some salad dressings because we need to eat more salad, and the best way to do it is with a salad dressing. So we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to make some pastries, but these are going to be some of the healthiest pastries you can sink your teeth in. And the reality is that we're going to learn how to do that so we can see they're made out of these things, but they taste absolutely amazing. I remember there was a gentleman who wanted my wife and I to come do a presentation at their church. It was a very big Baptist church. And the pastor said, but I want my minister, what did he call him? I didn't even know they existed. He said, I want my minister of food to come with me. I was like, minister of food? You know, I was like, I never asked him. I said, did you just make that up to just, but I need my minister of food to come with me. And I was like, sure. He says, we want to try the stuff you're going to present to our people. So we were like, okay. So we went and did it, and we made macaroni and cheese. And we did a macaroni and cheese dish, which in the South is a hit. You know, in the South, folks love macaroni and cheese. And so we made a mac and cheese, and we had them try it. And, you know, we're kind of sitting there looking at them. You know, we just want to see, how they're going to respond. And the minister of food, you know, he took one, but he did something interesting. Before you know, people usually try it and then say, oh, that's very good. But he did it, and he was just like, and he's taking more scoops. So I figured that was a positive sign. We ended up asking him, so how do you like it? And the first words that came out of their mouth is they said, you all are liars. And I'm thinking, okay, I needed to process that. I was like, we're all liars. And then he said, you said that this is not cheese. And that's when we knew, okay, we did a good job. And he said, if this is not cheese, he says, I need to know how you did this. So you'll find that on Sunday when we do our cooking class, there's going to be certain food groups that will taste different from probably what you're used to. But then there's some food groups that taste just like the original product. And that's a good thing because that's a great way to introduce people into more of a plant-based diet. But the reality is that when you see this here, don't be intimidated by that. It's like there's lots of ways to prepare this. And my wife and I have been plant-based for over 25 years. My oldest son is 25. He's grown up on a plant-based diet, and I dare any of you to call him skinny and frail. He looks nothing of the sort, okay? And the reality is all of my children, I'm thankful. They have beautiful health and strength and wisdom and all of the rest, and they grew up on a diet where they never ate animal products. And they did just fine. Protein, strength, muscles, all the above. And so don't believe the hype when people tell you, if I start eating like this, I'm going to shrivel away and die. It's like, no, that's the furthest thing from the truth. So that's a big one. So if you really are a meat lover, hey, start learning some alternate ways of enjoying food. It will really help us in fighting away some of those carcinogenic factors that gets in our system and can start messing with our DNA and causing these problems in the cells, which ultimately produces the cancer. Now, this is true. I don't go crazy on this myself. In other words, I don't eat everything organic. But this is something we do need to pay a little attention to. Okay? Sometimes in the world of food, we need to consider, should I get organic or should I get conventional? I'm going to give you a quick little wisdom key here. Very simple. If the skin is so soft that you can't even wash it, and you're going to eat the food with the skin, you might want to consider getting it organic. So what's an example of that? I'm going to say raspberries, blueberries. If you're going to eat the skin, and it's kind of hard. If you ever try to wash a raspberry, the thing kind of like crushes in your hand. You know what I mean? So it's like there's some food groups that are so soft, so fragile, and we eat the skin of it, that it might be better to go ahead and get it organic. Because here's the truth. A widely used pharmaceutical that is a key ingredient in new herbicide developed by Dow AgroSciences possibly causes cancer in humans. This battle in the world of pesticides is getting pretty bad. And there's a lot of evidence that this stuff, there's been lawsuits that have successfully passed. There's poor souls who have been eating with Roundup and all of these things, and unfortunately, they did get cancer. And so as a result of that, it becomes wise to kind of control the amount of food that you eat with pesticides. For some of the food groups that we get, apples, cucumbers, and otherwise, maybe skinning it might be the thing to do. It's like, so that way, because you can get the skin off and still enjoy it. Bananas, I don't ever buy organic bananas. They say that's a very thick skin. So the pesticide more than likely doesn't get through it. I have no studies that the pesticides get through it. So I just peel my bananas and then I eat my banana. So not everything has to be organic. But again, if you're going to eat the skin of the food group, and if it's a very soft skin and it's something that is very difficult to wash, then yeah, you might want to consider getting organic with that, because a lot of carcinogens can come through the pesticides that is put on our food. But let me say this. To go organic does involve a little bit of money. And some of us may be saying, you know what, I don't know if I have the money for that. And if you don't, my answer to you is very simple. Do your best. Don't worry, do your best. Because stressing out over organic or non-organic, that alone can probably make you sick. You understand that? So I always tell people, don't stress. The stress we got to keep away. There is sometimes some relevance of before eating the food saying, Lord, I thank you for what I'm about to eat. May it bring health and nourishment to my body as we partake. And then go ahead and eat. But don't stress it. But if you can, if it means you got to cut back on some features on your cell phone, if you got to cut back on maybe some channels that you're paying for, your Netflix or whatever, if some of those things, if you can reallocate some of those funds to getting more healthy food, hey, go for it and go ahead and get that healthier food, because we want to take charge of our health. Let's go ahead and continue. I'm going to go past that. Can't say enough about sugar. Again, we're talking about carcinogens, right? If you're going to use sugar, try to use more natural sugars. Now, the first natural sugars is going to be just your fruits. Okay, if you eat cereals and grains, and if you're eating yogurt and things of that nature, just try that. But if you want to go ahead and do some healthier sweeteners, honey is fine. You can go ahead and use honey judiciously. 100% grade A maple syrup, that's fine. Just use that judiciously. There are sweeteners out there that's okay to use, okay? And that's not strongly linked to any type of cancer. But watch out for your basic stripped white sugars. Watch out for things like corn syrup or high fructose corn syrup. These are the kind of things that, once again, is introducing. So I have to admit, when you start taking charge of your health, you are going to be a label reader. I just want you to know that. Raw sugar can be better, because what you still want to do is just look at, what do you mean by raw sugar? Because some labels will say it's raw sugar, but it's just crystallized sugar cane and that's it, and it's gone through a very serious processing. Versus others where it might be an actually healthier option. So just have them define it a little bit more. Like, what do you mean by raw sugar? Like, just try to get that from them. But again, like I said, honey, that's very safe. Maple syrup, that's a very safe one. They have some new sugars out there that, stevia. Stevia is typically known to be a very healthy sugar. The new one called monk fruit. Monk fruit, a lot of people are using monk fruit, but there has been some links to certain issues with blood clot formation. So, there's some things that's still under the radar, and we're still checking it out. So go with the regular stuff where there's no stress. Honey, no stress. Maple syrup, no stress, right? Watch out for some of this other new gimmicky stuff. There's still some debates going on with that. I'm going to go past this. I can't stress exercise enough. If you really want to give your body a head of the game battle when it comes to exercise, when you move your body, it helps with the production of your white blood cells, your army within. Okay, you're going to hear me talk about that tomorrow night as well. So you definitely want to get your exercise in. Look at this. Activity lowers risk of breast and other cancers. I mean, again, family, move. Just get out there and move. You have 1,000 reasons to do it, and you have really no reason to do it except just because we don't feel like it. But you give yourself that greater leg up, is go out there and get your exercise. And remember, walking is still one of the best exercises. Walking is still one of the best exercises. There's a reason why almost all of these watches and phones are saying 10,000 steps a day, 10,000 steps a day. They've done the science. Typically, 7 to 10,000 steps equates to a certain level of workout, and it gives your body a lot of those goody benefits, okay? Aim for at least 30 minutes a day. If you can get 30 minutes. Now look, if you're so not used to exercising, do 10, do 5. Don't worry about the number. Just start. I've learned something. You know what's the best exercise to do? The one that you do. You get that? That's the best exercise. Everybody, hitting this and that. No, the best exercise is the one that you do. So just do the best exercise you can. It'll get bigger. It'll get better. You'll turn into Superman and Superwoman in no time short. But please, just get started, okay? I'm going to go past this. We'll talk about inflammation tomorrow. Look at that picture. You know, we're a strange species, Cats go to cats for their milk. Dogs go to dogs for their milk. We're that interesting species that we go to a completely different species to get their milk. And the sad reality is growth hormone, IGF-1, very serious problem. Of those 59 hormones, a growth hormone called insulin, it is almost identical in cows and humans. This thing can fuel breast, prostate, and even colon cancers. So there's so many reasons why we need to pull away from animals' milk. I mean, animals' milk is something you really want to mitigate as much as possible. Find those alternatives, okay? Let me wrap it up here. This is the last one that we'll do for tonight. This is an excellent treatment. You do need training for this. That's why those institutes that I told you about before, Meat Ministry, Uchee Pines, Wildwood, Eden Valley, they do hypothermia. Hypothermia at Eden Valley, one of the claim to fames of help that Eden Valley has offered to many stages, multi-stage cancers, including stage 4, with success, is hypothermia treatments. A hypothermia treatment, sometimes we nickname it the fever bath. The fever bath. So what ends up happening is you put the person in a tub. Sometimes the tub of water might be 113 degrees. So when you stick your foot in that water, you're going to be like, whoa. You're going to feel that, okay? There's a lot of pre-check before they do this, okay? But they put the person into about 113 degrees. Once you sit in that for 5 minutes, you're going to develop a fever. That's why they call it fever bath, okay? You develop a fever. These are the essential things needed. You have to have a thermometer. You have to have cold water on hand for the person to drink, as well as to keep the head cool. Now, what blows my mind is Eden Valley actually, but this is all under medical supervision. The doctors, everybody there, big, huge history of this. They actually get your fever up to 105, 106. And what they have discovered is that if you get the temperature up to 106, the core temperature is going to be 2 degrees less, which is going to be 104. And that's exactly where they want you. And they hold you at 104 for 20 minutes. What they have found in these treatments, and again, a plethora of data on this. There are many hospitals, especially in Florida and some other places, that do hypothermia treatments with their cancer patients. What they have found is that, that person with the stethoscope around their neck indicates somebody who knows what they're doing. You don't just go home and wing this. You got to know what you're doing. You got to be trained and certified. Now, what it does is right here. I'm going to put it up here. This is a tumor, healthy and alive, while trying to destroy us. But as a result of hyperthermia, this is what starts happening to the tumor. It starts to get destroyed. They call it apoptosis. And so, the long story short of what I'm trying to say here is there are some amazing hydrotherapy treatments that can help an individual that's battling with cancer. But the key for all of us, family, is do everything possible to keep those cells as healthy and normally functioning as possible. And if we put those several things that we talked about into practice, remember the 5 needs of those cells. If we are intentional about doing that, oxygen, hydration, high-level nutrients, making sure that you're able to eliminate waste so you don't have waste buildup, toxicity buildup, and then doing what you can to keep toxins out and not allow them to come within. If we can practice those 5 principles, you would be amazed at how much further ahead of the game it'll put you and put me as it pertains to avoiding this thing called cancer. Are there other treatments? Certainly, there's poultices, there's herbal treatment, there's hydrotherapy treatments. There's a lot. But what we'll do is we'll save that for some time in 2024. One of the things that I'm going to be presenting to the team here at Folsom, Granite Bay Folsom, is we're going to talk about some clinical supervised natural remedy seminars. Clinical supervised natural remedy seminars, where individuals can learn simple natural remedies of how they can address the various things that they battle with on a regular basis. I think you guys are going to love it. But we'll see how that goes. But this is where we are going to conclude. I don't want to exhaust our time. We are at our time. We need to conclude. But I just want to let you know that cancer is something that can be fought. Cancer is something that can be overcome. Cancer is not necessarily a death sentence for us. But we need to do our part. And that's the thing that we're willing to do. Now, my question to you is, how many of us are willing to make a covenant to say, you know what, I'm making a covenant with myself that I'm going to do more of what I can do to make sure that I don't allow an environment within my system to invite cancer in my life? How many of us are willing to do that? You willing to do that? Man, I mean, there you go. And that's it. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to offer a word of prayer first to ask God to bless you in your efforts. And then number 2, I'm going to also ask that God will bless you to get home safely, okay? Let's pray together. Father in heaven, I just want to thank you. We covered so much on this subject of cancer, but there's so much more. Lord, I pray that you might bless every one of us, that as we have discovered some things tonight, that are areas in our lives that we know we can improve, we can do better, we can even start. I'm just praying that you might bless us, Lord, for whatever decisions we have made personally, that we might have the best results possible in overcoming or preventing the diseases of cancer. Lord, I also ask that you be with everybody and help them to get home safe and help them to come to their homes in safety, that all would be well when they arrive. And keep us till we meet again tomorrow. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Tomorrow,